Chapter 1. The Hitchhiker. Friday, 9 a.m. Mac's eyes locked onto the sight in his mirror as his Riggs 18 wheels rolled away from his boyhood home of Pampa, Texas. The "Do Not Pick Up Hitchhiker" sign above, where a man once stood, now topped a bare metal post. The man was gone, but the memories his image evoked seared into his soul like a branding iron. He indulged in the perverse pleasure of wallowing in the memories until his stomach twisted into the same old knots he could never seem to untangle. The memories brought comfort to him in a strange kind of way, as in the way a man hangs on to a grudge because it feels familiar and is easier to hang on to than let go. When the sign faded from sight, Mac eased back onto his seat. He shook the memories off with humor like he always did, driving them back into a forgotten graveyard in his mind. Maybe that was the ghost of dear old Dad leaning against that post, he thought, though dear old Dad died long ago in Huntsville State Prison. He chuckled to himself and glanced at his watch before turning his thoughts to Chicago, where he would unload his first load in decades. Almost 3 full days to make it there. Guess I can take the scenic route. But his peace of mind vanished like a vapor as he eyed the solitary figure of a man walking toward a mid-morning Texas sun that brought the promise of another blistering day to the Panhandle Plains. Even with the man's back to him, Mac recognized the hitchhiker as the same one he passed on the way to the slaughterhouse. He steered his new Peterbilt onto the shoulder and watched in his mirror as the man jogged to his truck. The hitchhiker flung the passenger door open and tossed his bag onto the floor before plopping himself onto the seat and turning to face Mac. "Where are you headed, son?" Mac asked. "Away from this godforsaken place," replied the hitchhiker. Mac turned his eyes to the highway and floated through 10 gears before casting those eyes toward his new passenger. "Good luck with that. Unless you have somewhere to go, your mind will stay locked up in that prison back there as long as you live." The hitchhiker fixed his eyes on Mac and smiled. It was a one-sided, tough guy kind of a smile. "How'd you know I just got out of prison?" "You may as well have had it stamped on your forehead." Mac glanced left and then right at his West Coast mirrors. He shrugged and attempted to suppress a grin but failed. "Besides, I saw you on my way to the slaughterhouse to load. You were leaning on a signpost beneath a 'Do Not Pick Up Hitchhiker' sign just down the road from the Jordan unit." The hitchhiker laughed. "I just set my bag down to rest. I never read the sign. The cop came along and told me if I didn't want to go back to the joint, I better hightail it out of his territory." He snatched up his bag and rested it on his lap for a long moment before tossing it onto the floor by the sleeper. "So why'd you pick me up?" "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Mac studied the hitchhiker's eyes before focusing once again on the painted lines darting past his beak. "Let's just say you remind me of someone I once knew." He watched his speedometer needle rise until it reached the speed limit, set the cruise control, and placed an arm on the armrest. "I'm taking a load of swinging meat to Chicago, so buckle up. I haven't driven a big rig in a month of Sundays. Should be an interesting ride." The hitchhiker settled onto his seat and folded his arms before cocking his head in Mac's direction. "Swinging meat?" "Yeah, swinging meat." Mac thrust a thumb over his shoulder. "Picture a bunch of cows hanging from their tails back there in the trailer. That's about how unstable the load is. Actually, it's sides of beef hanging from hooks. Anytime I make a sudden move, you'll feel those babies get to swinging around. And if I jerk the wheel too hard, we could end up with a truck shiny side down." "Shiny side down?" "Yeah, you know, upside down, dirty side up. Whatever you want to call it. This rig could easily end up that way." Max scanned his mirrors before facing his passenger once more. "Like I said, it's been a while since I've driven one of these things, and I've forgotten some of the lingo." He inclined his head toward the hitchhiker and grinned. "You may be dead when that happens. so I don't think the terminology will really matter at that point. It can't be that dangerous. The man turned to face the highway and laughed. Listen, I just spent the last 4 years of my life thinking I might get the shiny side of a shank into my jugular vein any day. Just 'cause maybe I hung around with the wrong people or something. He flopped his head around to face Mac and smiled his one-sided smile. I ain't scared of no swinging meat. Whoa! Mac yanked his steering wheel hard left, dodging a slow-moving combine before jerking the wheel back to the right and returning to his lane. The shifting carcasses in the trailer sent it reeling left before tilting back to the right as the rig swerved across both lanes. After slamming on his brakes, he watched as his trailer skidded across the highway and slid around toward his Pete. Mac spun the wheel right and back to the left, but his trailer just loomed ever larger in his mirror. Attempting to rein in the out-of-control rig, Mac rested his wheel back hard to the right, sending his truck careening off the highway. He veered off to the edge of the shoulder as his rig hit a soft spot. A chill shot up his spine, hearing a whoop when the carcasses shifted as the trailer leaned toward the embankment. Hang on. Mac hit the brakes once more, easy this time. His truck continued rolling along the shoulder until the big rig's wheels wound down and rolled to a stop. He gripped his steering wheel with arms locked forward and listened to his rig creak like an old rusted door as his trailer tilted inch by inch farther to the right. Ooh. Easing air from his lungs as if too much at once might unbalance the rig and send it crashing over the side of the highway, Mac considered his options. His best option at this point seemed to be abandon ship by hopping out of his truck. But after glancing at his passenger, he decided against it. Hey, you crazy, man? The hitchhiker shouted as he fumbled around for the door handle. I'm getting out of here. His door flew open, sending him sliding out of the cab. He grasped for the grab handle and peeked over his shoulder at the jagged concrete and steel left by a highway construction crew. Clutching the handle with both hands now, he tightened his grip and glared at Mac. Okay. Mac eased his hands away from the wheel before holding them up in a sort of, look, Ma, style. Hopefully the truck won't fall over on you when you get out. The hitchhiker punched a foot hard against the side panel and pushed himself onto his seat before releasing a hand from his grab handle. He leaned in toward Mac. Okay, so what are you gonna do? Well, if we just sit here, the truck will turn over for sure. And if we drive off, the rig still may flip over. But there's a chance it won't. Mac positioned his hands onto the top of his steering wheel before sliding his moist palms into place and facing his passenger. So I say, we drive forward and pray. The hitchhiker clicked his seatbelt into place with his free hand. I'm with you, man, he said before digging his fingers into his armrests. The man stared lockjawed at the highway ahead. Let's do it.